So we're recording.
Okay, we're recording. Good. Yay. Okay. Hi, everyone. I am connecting today with my good friend and former colleague, Lee LaBay. I worked with Lee for just a brief time right before I really expanded into energy healing. And Lee is amazing. She has so much experience behind her. She has been a teacher of hypnotherapy and past life regression for decades, over 20 years. And even at institutes of higher education like Bastyr University and Bellevue. And she is located in the Washington area, kind of close to Seattle, right?
Yeah. Bellevue area, Bellevue, Washington, yeah.
So I just wanted to connect with Lee because she has some exciting things coming up. And also, I know there are so many of you that I've spoken with and connected with who are really on this spiritual path, and many of you who are considering a career in spirituality. And there is nothing that I currently offer to do those trainings, and I have not felt called to offer that yet. But Lee does offer these things, and she's the best person I know to recommend you to. So I really wanted to get into her story and everything so you can see if you resonate. Starting off, I wanted to talk about kind of the spiritual scary word in the room, which is hypnotherapy, which I know has a lot of mixed emotions about it. But in your experience, Lee, what is hypnotherapy and what can it accomplish?
Well, so hypnotherapy, I think the reason it seems scary is because everybody thinks suddenly they're going to have somebody controlling their mind and their actions. And really what you see on television or in movies is what we call stage hypnosis. And so when we're talking about hypnotherapy, the word includes the idea of therapy. So we're using the hypnotic state, which is a focused mental state, a calm, focused state, much like a meditation, but we're using that, and then we're applying the therapy part to it. So we're using that focused mental state to actually affect change and growth and healing for the client.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's not mind control. I mean, I get a practitioner that wanted to do that could do that, but how I use it and how I train people is very client-centered, and we're in dialogue, and the person is always aware of who they are and what they're doing and where they are, and can even edit what they say. They're able to manage that. So it's very mild, almost like if you were in a meditation, you could always open your eyes and say, okay, I need to use the restroom, or I'm going to go get water or something. Mm-hmm. And so the same thing here, they're in control of themselves, but there is that beautiful, yummy, relaxed, imaginative, hypnotic trance state that is happening at the same time.
Yeah. And I've actually done a session with you as well, right before my business really took off, and I was experiencing a lot of physical pain and mental blocks and just feeling really stuck. And I remember going into it thinking, okay, I'm going to have this session and I'm not going to remember a word of anything that I say. But actually at the end, I remembered everything. And it's it was that weird feeling where I was lucid, but I was able to access things that I hadn't been able to before.
Exactly. This type of hypnotherapy that I practice, which I call client-centered hypnotherapy, is a lot different from even other hypnotherapists who put the client into trance and then deepen and deepen and deepen, read a script, give some affirmations and bring you out, and you don't remember. You really kind of fall asleep. But this is, because we're doing it in dialogue, for me, the goal is to create greater consciousness, greater self-awareness. And so it would not be useful in any way for a client to come out and not remember anything, right? So in this case, you actually remember and are, like you said, very lucid during the session.
Yeah. And you bring an important or a very interesting thing into this state, this focused mental state, and you use it also to explore past lives. So you kind of meld the two together. So why is that important, and how does that work together?
So I actually started out doing past life regression first because that was my passion. I've been on a spiritual journey. I kind of started when I was 16, getting interested in things. I think there was interest before that, but at 16, I started learning how to read tarot cards. I started learning and studying astrology, which, I blend all of that into what I do. But then, a few years later, I started really getting interested in past life regression and learned how to do that for people. And then a little bit later, I got my certification in hypnotherapy. And once that happened, it was like light bulbs went off, because I realized that instead of just doing a sightseeing tour in a past life, just going back and seeing who we are, we can actually go in there and use the hypnotherapy, psychological NLP tools, all the different healing tools within the past life regression. And so, like if you're having addiction issues in this lifetime, maybe you drink too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can fight it here. You can overcome that, and we can do a lot of work here in this lifetime. But if we go into, if you're having that issue here, I would almost guarantee you that you're going to have that in many lifetimes. It's going to be an issue for you in a lot of different time zones, a lot of times and places, experiences that you've had. So when we go into the past life and we actually do the healing there in, say, multiple lifetimes, then it takes away that foundation for the addiction, and you're not fighting so much. So then when we're doing the healing in this lifetime, it's so much easier to have it be successful, because you're not being dragged back by all these other lifetimes that have that same issue. So I really pioneered that technology of combining those two together, of applying the hypnotherapy within the past life. And it's just incredibly successful.
Mm. And when did you know that it was time, once you put the two together, when did you know it was time to share that with the world? How did you get started with the teaching?
The teaching part, yeah, so I was getting such amazing results, and people, so many people were asking me to do work. And then, it's sort of like you need to replicate yourself, right? So I wanted to be able to offer this to a wider range of people, or a grander audience. But as a therapist, I could only work one-on-one, right? 1 hour at a time. And so by teaching other people to become therapists, I'm able to then, this technology, these techniques are able to reach and help, an exponentially larger audience in the world. And really the goal is to make this world a better place to live in, to, help people all around the world to grow and change and live happy wellness lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And as you started, so rewinding a little bit, as you started learning these things and becoming certified in these things, was there any inner work you found like you had to do in order to continue on your path or get further?
The inner work never ends. It never ends. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing that there's always something to work on. I was already on that self-discovery, self-development path, ever since I started with the tarot and astrology, and throughout those years. But even with being a hypnotherapist now and being a trainer, I'm constantly being called, to be accountable for myself, or, as I'm working with another person, I can recognize things that they're going through that maybe I need to address. And so, every client just opens these doors to the universe to me, either understanding more about the human condition or how we create our perspectives and how we build our psyche and responses and habits and things, but also in reflecting things that would be useful for me to take and learn and grow from as well. So I also have a teacher, and I take 2 self-development classes every single week. It's studying the universe and studying time space and studying energy generation and also doing our own personal work. And so, yeah, but for me, that's the fun stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And that makes so much sense. I mean, what you're talking about with each client opening up so much for you, it's so true. This learning through other people's bodies and like just having that, sometimes when I'm in a session as well, something will come through or their body will say something and it's like, whoa, it just expands everything for you.
right.
It's really amazing. And they really do kind of guide you along. So it never feels like, I mean, if you are coming into this and trying to be like, I am the expert and I am up here and I know everything already, you're not going to be able to do anything.
You'll get knocked off that pedestal pretty quickly.
Yeah. Even you who's been doing it for years and years and years. Yeah. The universe will still slap you in the face.
Oh, yes. Yeah. For those lessons. And it's just beautiful. I really take it as an honor when people come to me. I was going to say come in my office, but now, of course, it's all over Zoom. We do the long distance sessions, which is just as powerful. But it's an honor to me that they would trust me and that they feel that this is the place and these are the techniques that are really going to serve them. And so I take that with great responsibility and great respect that they're sharing maybe these secrets or sharing their process and their history with me. It's a very beautiful honor, really.
It is. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And you also said something that I think is really important, especially when it comes to purpose and mastery of something, which is that you do those self-development classes as well. So, and you incorporate a lot of techniques. I've had a lot of people come and asking, what do you do? How do you get started? And the biggest thing I think is just, you've got to find your people. You've got to find your mentors, those people that you can talk to and get advice from and incorporate things from and share things with.
Exactly.
So that's really great. What else?
Well, and feeding off of that, I've taken classes from all sorts of different practitioners and in different I've got Reiki, and I've done of course astrology and tarot, and I've studied with Richard Bandler of NLP fame. I've gone to the Monroe Institute for a couple different programs. And so we take, I follow the thread of what is really interesting to me. I find where's my passion, where's my interest, and I follow that thread, but I always bring it back, and then I can incorporate that into what I'm doing in my office or even my frame of mind or my perspective on the universe, so that when I'm working with people, I have a greater understanding. And what I always say is I hold this dark, or not dark, like this grand, loamy, I don't know, cauldron or pool of juicy stuff, right? This energy field, so that people can step into that. And, I'm not afraid of going into the deep, dark corners. They can't tell me anything that is too wild or too outside of, my scope of either experience or knowledge or ability to understand, right? And so I can hold that space for them. And I think it's really important, and it comes from doing our self-work, the work on ourselves, to be able to not have fear if somebody is telling us about something maybe really scary to them, you know, or profound or traumatic. I can sit and hold that energetic field so that they can process that without either my judgment or my fear or my energy interfering with that. And it's so powerful. And that's, you know, part of also what I teach in my classes is to be able to do that. And when we find something, I've had other hypnotherapists come to me and say, you know, could you take all of my clients who've had sexual abuse because it triggers me and I can't work with those clients. And, you know, of course I'll take those clients, but first let's work on that, because if that's triggering you, then that's something up for you that could be worked on, that needs to be worked on. You know, why live your life being triggered by these things, right?
Yeah, and there's such this feeling of allowing like something else to come through you, this ability to hold yourself back and allow this other thing through at the same time, which
Yeah.
I think is in your work is amazing because you're able to do it so that people can experience that feeling, because you could explain it all day, but it's until you've actually had the practice and been able to feel what that's like, it's really hard to master.
Right.
And also so important how you incorporate so many things in there. So the NLP and even psychology roots, and I know you have new physics as well that you put in, and just all of these things that build off of each other rather than contradict each other is really amazing.
Right. Combining. I've done a lot of shamanic studies, mostly in the Celtic Druidic fashion, and that feeds into it. And what I tell my students is that, you know, this is my set of experiences and passions and education and knowledge that I bring to the session. But every other therapist has their own. Maybe they've been, you know, been on a different journey of study, or, you know, a different track or different passions, and they bring that to the table. They you know, or to the session, all of, you know, their education and their unique energies. And so, you know, mine aren't the only way. Other people will have the ways that they'll combine it. And I know a lot of people teach, you know, any topic, but even in hypnotherapy, and it's like, these are the rules, this is the way you have to do it, and everybody has to be a cookie cutter. And how I teach is, here's the structure of these techniques, and here's how it works. Here's how it's worked for me for decades with these wonderful results. I want you to learn that structure so that you can use it. But once you're in the session, it becomes very organic. And, you know, each therapist may tailor the tech, you know, a particular technique to the use that's appropriate for that client, or in a way that's more familiar or more comfortable for that therapist. And so everybody, even all my students, will be practicing these techniques slightly differently, and you know, bringing in their own energy and their own perspectives as well. So I just give them all of the structure, and then once we're in the session, it's this organic flow. You know, every client I work with, we're going to work differently. It's all going to be new and exciting.
Yeah, so that holding that space for each person to bring their own little unique magic in.
Exactly.
Yeah, and having those tools in the organization is so important, because sometimes if you go into a session without anything to hold on to, I mean, mine is body charts, and if I didn't have that,
right,
I would just be, it would be, where do I even start? I don't even know what to do. So it gives you that piece of calm that you can hold on to, so that you are able to get and receive more things. If your brain's already automatic, you can receive more things through you.
exactly. Having that structure as the foundation, and then it allows you to really be operating with intuition, you know, once you're going in the session.
Yeah.
You know? and be able to access those tools very readily.
Great. Well, I also wanted to take a moment. I mean, we can't do this without talking about cool success stories or experiences. So do you have any like favorite transformation stories of anyone that you've worked with? Or
I have so many, it's
I
hard.
know it's hard.
What do I think of? So I was just looking at something I had written a while ago, and it included this beautiful story. And I thought, oh, this might be something I could share with your audience. I had a client who came to me. She had breast cancer, and she wanted to do some work with me before she started the chemo and the medical track, going down that line. She really understood the need to get to the root cause of why she had developed this disease. And as we know, everything, our habits, our diseases, our dysfunction, all have a deeper root in either a spiritual legacy or mental beliefs or something deeper that we have to look at. And luckily she understood that. So she came to me, and as we started working, again, I didn't know where we were going to go, but I thought, well, maybe we would be, I didn't know. But as we got started anyway, right away, she found herself in, we go to a safe space. And as she was describing that, she was handed by spirit, okay, spirit, her subconscious mind, spirit guides, we don't know. But anyway, she was handed this book, and it was a book of a legacy of her spirit, of her soul, so it was her ancestors, but it was also like all of her lifetimes. And as she started looking through this book, she noticed that some spirit guides were coming around her. And one of them was a Native American shaman, and he started speaking with her. And he told her that the root of her illness was in the idea that she was trying to make herself small, and she was hiding, just kind of making herself smaller than who she was as a soul or a spirit. She wasn't really expressing her true nature. So we went into a past life, and in that past life, she was a woman and she was a physician, and her father had trained her as an apprentice. Way back then, there were no medical schools. And so she was trained as an apprentice. And in that lifetime, she had become super overwhelmed. She had all these people coming to her, and she was overwhelmed by the burden of holding life and death in her hands, that these people's lives were dependent on her. And so she was, crying to the gods, why me? Why do I have to do this, right? Why, can't somebody else do this? So, so the Native American shaman came back into the picture and said, you're doing the same thing in this lifetime. You're feeling so overburdened that that you're just shutting down and you're staying small, so you don't have to be responsible, because she's also a healer, or has the potential to be a healer in this lifetime. And he said, you're staying small so you don't take on that overwhelm and that responsibility. And he suggested, why don't you teach other people to be apprentice, or even just reach out and let other people support you. And she was a person that, just had to do it all. Nobody else would do it as well. And, and she would take all that responsibility on for everybody and not really delegate. And so she was having all these light bulbs going off, and it was really cool. And then we went into a second past life, and there she went to a lifetime in Egypt, and she was a healer to the royal family. So it was a much more empowered lifetime, and it was very calm. And so she would do this healing, but from a state of her full empowerment and her full self and her capabilities. And it was so easy, and it was easier for people to heal because she was, filling out her auric field, and her energy was really strong and everything. And so again, she was just reinforced with that she needed to delegate in this lifetime. So we worked together over a long period of time. She still needed to go in for her the medical treatments.
Yes.
But what was cool was she learned, she had a lot of responsibilities and different things, but she learned to be able to delegate all of this out, especially when she was under treatment. She just had to learn to let it go and to let other people help her and take care of a lot of the responsibility. And she's gone a long time, and she's completely cleared of her cancer.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
amazing.
And it's been a while. So, yeah, but you never know how would it have turned out. But with this added information, with this added sense of herself, not only could the healing take place more rapidly and maybe more completely, because that was what her body was trying to tell her, and in fact, in this lifetime, her mother in this lifetime had taught her that she needed to be in service to others, but being in service meant self-sacrifice.
Yeah. Yep. Losing herself in the service of others.
Right. Yeah. And so, one of the teachings I do is about sacred selfishness, which is the opposite of that, not to be selfish, but to do it sacredly, of taking care of yourself and living from that grander sense of energy, allowing that to flow. But anyway, in her case, she realized that she had taken that self-sacrifice all the way to a subconscious death wish, which is why it had come in as such a strong, cancer. So she had actually attracted this to her because, she didn't want responsibility, so she was hiding from that and feeling, and combined with the self-sacrifice. So it was going to kill her. But anyway, she's fine now. I check in with her every so often, and things are going super well. So, and these stories just go on and on and on, of how, and that's kind of a good example too of why we would want to combine past life with the hypnotherapy. Yes. Not every session goes into past life, but when it's called for, it's very, very powerful, and you want to be able to access that if that's what's needed in a session.
Yeah, and such an interesting story with her too, because there's a lot of purpose in her story, and her as a healer as well, and her ability to heal through others. And there is a quote, I think it's from the Gospel of Thomas, I think. The quote is, if you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. If you don't bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you.
Oh, interesting.
So in her case, it's so true. It was destroying her fighting against that. Exactly. There's no point for her to be here if she's not going to do it. So how do you know, and maybe it's just, you don't have a general answer, but it's just for you, how did you know, if you have that healer call, like that call to be a healer, how do you know? How does that show up?
Well, actually, I'm not a healer, if that's what you're referring to.
Okay, yeah.
Which is interesting, because I'm in a healing field, right?
Yes.
But I'm a teacher, so I'm more a teacher by nature. If you think of a druid, for instance, who knew astrology, knew science, knew how to do strategy for warfare, knew how to heal, would perform ceremony and ritual, all of that. That's more of my nature. And so I got into this because of my desire for self-knowledge and being able to provide that for others. And I was questioning, am I a healer? But actually then teacher kind of emerged, that I'm actually a teacher, because even in my sessions, it's more of how can this person become more enlightened and more aware. Yeah. So my goal is more teaching than healing, even though healing is a part of the journey in order for them to have that awareness and that conscious expansion. Yeah. Other people would go into it as healers. Most of my students are more healers. Okay. And teaching is just actually one tiny thread of of what my real purpose is. And healing would be the tiny thread. There would be purpose beyond that as well. But we figure that out through how I do it in my sessions. When a person wants to know their purpose, I do it by going into many different lifetimes, and we see what is the thread of similarity. In the client that I just talked about, in 2 past lives and her present life, there was the thread of healing others, mending things, making it better. So that could show up as being a gardener. You plant seeds, you help them grow. Working with animals, you help them heal and grow. Working with humans, help them heal and grow. And it could be working with energy. It could be as a medical doctor. It could be as a psychologist. Those tracks can be varied. But we look at that through past life regression. And then I have an exercise that I combine with that helps them to prioritize their values. And so if they cognitively, objectively look and say, here are the things that are most important to me in this order, then that would all point to, the nature of that calling or that purpose. And then you combine that with these past lives. So again, for coaches who want to help people find their purpose, or if you want to do that for yourself, these techniques would be very appropriate.
So then you mentioned coaches as one of the people you would work with in these trainings. What other types of people do you see and work with in these trainings?
Well, I work with creative people. I've done a lot of work with creative people that, want the work for themselves to get past blocks and things, but then they also want to work with creative people to help them get past blocks, right? Mm-hmm. So creative people, coaches are very big, massage therapists, very big. They get tired, their bodies get tired of massaging. And also with COVID, they were closed down.
Yeah.
So a lot of them came to get training. They realized they needed to be able to do something more long distance. I've worked with police officers, firemen, business people, obviously business coaches. I've had a dentist. I've had, who else comes? Creative people.
Wow.
Said that.
And police officers and everything, even for training in this.
Yeah. And
wow.
Well, especially when I was teaching at Bastyr University, which is one of the highest prestigious universities that train naturopaths and nutritionists and acupuncturists. Not all those students, but a lot of those students were coming in and adding hypnotherapy to it and finding that even as an acupuncturist, sometimes they just couldn't get past a certain thing that wouldn't heal, or a naturopath or a nutritionist, and then they would add the hypnotherapy in, and then it would totally resolve because they needed to get to those underlying issues that were holding that in place.
Okay.
Yeah, no matter what that issue is, like say there's an issue with the body, you can massage, you can take medicine, you can do all these things. But if there's something going on in the subconscious mind that thinks it's protecting, that thinks it has to keep this issue there, or in the case of the woman with breast cancer, needed to get her attention, severely needed to get that attention, the body will persist even beyond the medical or, any other treatments. And so we have to get excuse me, we have to get to those root causes in order then for the medicine to work or for the rest of that therapy to work. Yeah. So a lot of people, sociologists, psychologists come and take the training.
Great. Yeah. And that's how I started. I was like, I'm desperate. I have this sickness going on and no one else can tell me anything. No one else is helping. Let me do this work and I guess I'll give it a try. And then boop, that was it. So
so amazing, huh?
Well, if people are feeling like really called, I know probably this whole conversation has just been amping up. Yes, yes, yes. If that's like, you're feeling that way. what is the opportunity for trainings? What does that look like? I know you have a couple coming up.
Yes, so I now have the entire training online on teachable.com, and it's just beautifully laid out. It's very straightforward. You just go down the modules, you read them, you understand that, and then you're practicing. And then coupled with that, I have a set of 7 3-hour phone calls that when you sign up for the training online, you can choose between, there's a start date September 15th, and then the one after that is October 13th. And they'll go for seven weeks, depending on what time of day you prefer. In September, September, October, those calls will be at 4 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay.
So it's good for people from Australia all the way over to the Caribbean or the East Coast of the United States, all, North and South America. And then in October 13th through end of November, those calls are at 9 a.m, which is good for people all from the West Coast of the US all the way over to Istanbul and Israel, all the way across Europe into Eastern Europe. People there, these are reasonable hours during the day to be attending the calls. So we get on the calls and we create community. It also keeps accountability because a lot of times, you might be out there going, oh, I've started online courses before and I never finish them. And I don't want that. If you're going to invest in this and you want to do this, I have a lot of support. I personally give a lot of support. So we get on the calls, you do a few modules, we get on the calls, and then a couple more modules, you get on the call. And so it keeps you moving along. We create a community, so you have other practitioners, other students that are learning. You can practice with them. I also have a Facebook group that is only my students and graduates. You can find people to practice with there. We have a lot of ongoing conversations there as well. And also during the calls, I'll do live demonstrations. So I'll pick one of the students and we'll go through and I'll show you how these therapy techniques work. And then I answer lots and lots of questions for them so that, they're really understanding it. They never get lost. And at the end of all of that, they get a certificate. They become a certified hypnotherapist and also a certified past life regression specialist.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very thorough education. I don't spend a lot of time on the history and all the people that came before us and all of that, because I figure you can go online if you're interested in all of that. Mm-hmm. I don't want to take your time up with that. I want your time to be spent really getting the practicality of it. People, even after the first few modules, you're able to put a person into trance. Maybe you have children and you can put them to sleep at night, or a friend, hey, let's go into trance. Let's just experience this. Yeah. You'll have techniques. And then, every week you're going to be adding a few more techniques that you can practice with people. If you already have a practice, maybe you already are an energy healer, an alternative medicine healer, or something like that, people right away can start, slipping these techniques into the work that they're doing. If you're a coach, there are techniques that you don't even have to put the person in trance, and you can actually just move right into this technique. Maybe ask your client, well, just close your eyes for a few minutes and answer these questions. Mm-hmm. And you'll start helping them in a deeper way. And then you can go back to your business coaching.
Yeah. And I think that community that you provide too is really priceless, because I know a lot of people, when they start on this spiritual path, there's so many, you can be seen as woo-woo, and maybe your family or your partner isn't as supportive, so you aren't able to practice on the immediate people around you. So being able to provide that outlet with people who are thinking as you are not only lets you get mentors, but also allows you to practice freely without feeling watched or judged.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's true. And really, you can create relationships where you could be trading sessions for the rest of your life
Yes.
and get free therapy. You know, I'll do an hour
I
with
do that all the time.
right?
All
You
the time. Yeah.
I mean, your investment is going to, be valuable for the rest of your life. And I'm on the Facebook page and I answer all the questions there as well. Plus, I'm now giving a free, about every 2 weeks or so, I schedule a free call. And anybody that has ever taken my trainings can get on the call if they have questions, if they have a client they need help with. Oftentimes, I'll present kind of a new perspective, a new concept, or a new technique. And so there's just this ongoing support and availability that's there. And I think it's important because even with normal certification or education, a lot of times you graduate and then you're just like, okay, now I'm out here all by myself. What do I do?
Yeah.
And I really have this huge network of people, including myself. You know, if you have business questions or, hey, I want to market, but I don't know about this, or has anybody tried this technology or this platform? I mean, we're just sharing all sorts of information all the time and giving that support back.
Well, great. That's amazing. I will link also the page for the courses and everything so people can look at that and look at the details and everything if you feel called. And then your website, I know, is another good way to get a hold of you, right? And is that Teachable or Mary Lee LaBay?
Mary Lee LaBay.
Okay.
So click the link first, because I think a lot of questions will be answered. So click the link that Jessica gives you and read over. And I also have a course on astrology and another one on tarot.
Yes. Yeah.
The main one, of course, is the hypnotherapy and past life regression. But take a look at that. And then if you have questions, you can go over to maryleelabay.com or and email me. Or there's a way to contact me there, and you go through Calendly and you get on my schedule, and I'll give a free 30 to 60 minute enrollment call where we can discuss how would this fit with your career or your career plans. So if you looked it over and you go, oh, this is exciting, I want to be able to do this, but what else do I need?
How does this make sense? And
yeah,
I feel called, but I'm a police officer. What the heck? Yeah. Yeah.
Right. How is this going to work out? Let me help you wade through that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, because I've helped so many people integrate this with whatever it is they're doing that, I can give you suggestions and we can talk about how this would look in your own life.
Well, good.
Yeah. Easy.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and everything. I know there's a million other things. Like, I could just talk to you for 3 hours because it's amazing.
We'll just do it again.
We'll just keep doing it. But it also is just such a blessing to be in the presence of someone who's so in their purpose, and that really pulls things out of you too. So thank you so much for being that example for everyone and for sharing with us.
You're very welcome. Yeah, this is my life passion. Has all of my studies and interests feed into what I teach my people. So yeah, it's not like I read a book and now I'm going to teach it, right?
No, you have done the work and brought your unique call to it. It's not just, I'm going to be another teacher. It's right. This is what I came here to do.
Yeah. I would be happy to talk to anybody that wants to explore that deeper and see how this would work in their own career.
Great. Good. People, I'm thinking of you. You know who you are. I did this for a reason. Yeah. So Good.
Okay, well, good. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. This has been so fun to connect with you here today.
You too. Thank you so much, Mary Lee. And I'm sure we'll talk to you again in the future and be in touch.
Absolutely. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.